We have big news. We have exciting news for you. Tell them what it is, Serena.
We are super excited to announce that we are starting our first membership this January 2024.
Yay! Membership.
So we're excited to let you know that we will be hosting a monthly membership where when you join, you will be
with us live in a Zoom room once a month for a workshop like we just hosted. It's going to be a workshop like that, one topic each month, a different topic. You might even help us come up with the following month's topic from inside our membership. Super excited to meet you. It was so fun meeting a few of you in our inaugural workshop. So we're really looking forward to that.
And when you are a member, you will also be receiving a monthly newsletter where I'm going to be a little more intimate and I'll be sharing the things that are working and the things that aren't working for me.
Yeah, like taking a tool that you've learned from the podcast and how you're implementing it and how well that worked, or maybe if it didn't work. And then Amma can put in my 2 bits worth. We'll see how that goes. But a membership newsletter and a membership live Zoom room workshop starting in January 2024. Can sign up through our Patreon link in the show notes, yeah?
Yes, everything will be in the show notes, and we can't wait to see you there, listeners.
We can't wait. Yay!
Hey, mamas, we're so happy that you can join us for this week's conversation. It's, I feel like I always say this, it's a real goodie, and we're diving into the nitty-gritty. And this week, we're talking about how bad is fighting in front of our children. And in this episode, we will discuss the 2 types of fighting, destructive and constructive, how destructive conflict can harm our children, what does constructive conflict look like, and how can we implement it. I promise it is filled with so many gems, so much good information, and we're happy to have you. So let's get into it.
Hey, Mama, welcome to the Nurturing Parent Podcast. Do you want to end the constant battles for bath time? Do you find yourself emotionally exhausted at the end of the day? Do you wake up with big hopes for a smooth day of fun with your little ones, only to face an early morning meltdown because you peeled their banana the wrong way?
Silly you.
Silly you.
Hey, I'm Serena. I'm a mama of 2 little ones, and as a new mama, I constantly questioned myself. I wanted to make sure I was raising respectful kids while also building a strong bond with them. But I discovered that I had to unlearn my ideas that punishment was the way. With Amalisa's encouragement, I've been practicing a respectful and gentle parenting approach, which is strengthening our bond as a family.
And hi, I'm Amalisa. Amma means grandmother in Icelandic. I am a mama and an amma. And I have over 40 years of experience in childcare and parent coaching. And I am so excited to share the knowledge I've gained over these years with you.
Together in this podcast, each week we will explore some easy to implement skills you can add to your parenting tool belt to help you create a happy, thriving family. Hello, mamas. Today, we are very grateful to one of our listeners for writing in and bringing this hot topic to us because it is a hot topic that isn't spoken about very often. So here it is.
It's intense.
It's
an intense topic that we all deal with. And like you said, Serena, we just don't talk about it. We keep it behind closed doors.
Mm-hmm.
Drum roll. Parents fighting.
Yes.
And what about parents fighting in front of the children? Our listener wanted to know, is that a problem? She knows that it is, but wants to know more about what is detrimental. How is it detrimental? How bad is it? Can we fight sometimes? Blah, 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 all the things. And we all feel those questions, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I know I certainly did when I was a young mama. I was like, oh gosh, you kind of feel like you're destroying your child while you're fighting with your spouse in front of the child or even behind closed doors. I have a memory when I was, I don't know, 8, 9, 10, up in there. And I remember hearing my stepmom and my stepmom fighting with my dad in the middle of the night. I'd wake up hearing them fighting. I still have memories, and I bet you do too, memories of our parents fighting, and they stay with us, and they're not happy memories.
Mm-hmm.
So let's dive in.
Yeah. Can I just share one of mine? Because also part of it is
Absolutely.
it's really hard to control when you're really angry, and sometimes our partners can really get the ugly out of us. But I just remember, because I want to mention it just so you really see how common it is, even though nobody talks about it. But I was arguing with my husband once, and I just got so heated, and he even said, "Don't fight in front of the kids." And I was just so angry. I was like, "I don't care." And oh my gosh, that ate away at me for so
Mm,
long after saying that,
mm,
because I do care and it does
mm.
matter. And
Yes.
yeah, it's really hard, especially when you're in the heat of the moment and
Mm.
you just want to get your point across and you don't feel seen. It's hard. And when you have littles that are always there, you feel like you never have the privacy to even get those conversations in.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Okay. Thank you for sharing that, because I think that it does help to know that we all do it, and
Mm-hmm.
that it is normal. So that's number one. It is normal. What we also know is normal is that our little ones are like sponges. They hear and they see everything. They're picking it all up, even the silent stuff. If you happen to be somebody who gives the silent treatment, my research actually shows that that can be worse. So I'm going to go through, we're going to talk about how is it harmful for our children, the different kinds of conflict. There's destructive conflicts and constructive conflicts. And what can we do to aim for the constructive types of conflicts? And so we're avoiding the destructive types, which are causing all these problems for our children that can actually become lifelong problems if there's that much destructive conflict in their lives when they're young. Okay. So those are kind of the little outline. Um, Children as young as 6 months old in studies have been shown to show cortisol spikes
Mm.
when their parents are fighting.
Wow.
Babies in utero also respond to mother's stress with spikes of cortisol. Now, don't ask me how they find these things out, but they do.
That's what I was wondering.
Yeah. So they have, in scientific labs and whatever, they're putting probes in different places and finding out. But so a child that is in utero and the parents are fighting, or the mother is experiencing high levels of stress, which destructive fighting can cause, that baby is going to already have higher levels of cortisol at birth. I think that's how they actually discovered it, was at birth, right? So when we have spikes in our cortisol levels, that's our stress hormone. It depletes our feelings of safety and security. And as nurturing parents, we are always talking about creating safety and security, so our children can grow feeling confident and their self-esteem is good. All the
Happy.
pieces.
Yeah.
Yeah, all the pieces. So let's look at destructive conflicts first. What makes a conflict destructive and harmful to our children? We're going to talk about verbal aggression, which can include insulting the other person, name calling, threatening, abandonment. Those are all forms of verbal aggression. Obviously, physical aggression is very destructive for a child to witness, and that would include hitting or pushing or worse. Um, and then, like I mentioned, the silent types of dealing or not dealing with a conflict, which would include sulking, pouting, walking away, like walking out, withdrawing and avoiding the conflict, and something we call stonewalling. So that silent treatment, that one can be particularly destructive to our children because they're reading the energy. Children are very good at reading the energy in the room.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're just given that old silent treatment,
It's a
the
bad vibe.
energy is spiked. It's
Mm-hmm.
so intense, right? And they have to guess at what's happening. They're not hearing words. They're not seeing conflict. But boy, do they ever know what's happening. So that one, in my research, that one was really actually even one of the worst ones.
It's
Yeah.
just literally a bad vibe. It's very uncomfortable for
Yeah.
us, and they
Mhm.
feel all of that.
Yeah. The little sponges are soaking it all up. And then the last one is the type of conflict where we use capitulation, which means that we give in to the other person or we make peace, but it's actually a false peace. We're going, okay, all right, fine. We'll do it your way. I agree. Fine, 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 fine. And you're not fine with it. You're not fine at all. And the energy of not being fine is still in the room, but your words are saying, I'm fine, or your actions are saying, I'm fine. And so there's a conflict in what the children are seeing and hearing. So capitulation and silent treatment stuff, those aren't any better than the physical or verbal aggression behaviors. Okay. So those are all forms of destructive conflict. Here are the very hard to hear and saddening. When I was doing all this research, you guys, it was intense because I'm remembering myself as a mama and conflicts that I had with my partner. I'm remembering conflicts from my childhood. Serena, you were also remembering things as we were talking prior to recording. So here's the hard list to listen to. And these are the reasons that you want to learn what I'm going to come to after this list of how it affects our children. Then we're going to move into what does a constructive conflict look like? Okay. So for children, witnessing our parents arguing is always upsetting and stressful. It just always is. Now, whether it's destructive to our children's well-being will depend on the frequency of our fighting, the intensity of the fighting, and whether or not we come to resolution, and whether there's destructive types of fighting like I just listed off. Those all tend to be harmful for our children. The one main thing we want to aim for, and we'll come back to that when we get to the constructive conflict, is resolution. But all of these effects on our children will happen, and they will be dependent upon the frequency and intensity of our fighting, whether it's in front of our children in the room or behind closed doors where they can still hear and feel the energy. Okay. So we're going to look at the emotional, the physical, the intellectual, and the social problems that can occur for our children. Our children can become emotionally distraught. Witnessing our parents fighting is definitely anxiety producing.
Mm-hmm.
Our children can become worried and concerned and, all that anxiety, and their self-esteem can plummet. Can really cause low self-esteem and also low self-confidence. Their world isn't safe. How would it be safe to be confident, to go out into the world in a powerful way, an empowered way, right?
And maybe part of that too is maybe they start feeling like they might be the cause to the fighting, right?
Absolutely. Children almost always, on some level, whether it's ever acknowledged or not, feel like they are the problem. They did something wrong, whether or not a
Mm-hmm.
parent says so. And
Yeah.
sometimes parents even will say so, which is, of course, extremely destructive. So we've got that list: anxiety, worry, low self-esteem. It could also come out, the emotional problems can come out in anger, hostility, aggressive tendencies. So it depends on the child. And you can think about your family of origin, perhaps. I know with mine, some of us became aggressive and hostile, and some of us became anxious and worried, so it really depends on the child and their personality type. Then let's see. Oh, yeah, they can develop behavioral problems. And we become more emotionally reactive people in all of our relationships, in our childhood, as we're trying to develop friendships with our peers, and in our adult relationships. We are more emotionally volatile. Okay.
I imagine because that's what we're modeling for them if we are fighting in front of them, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Volatility is what's modeled. Those little sponges are soaking it up and going, oh, I guess this is what happens when somebody yells or when I don't like something. This is how we deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
Some adverse problems that can occur with our physical well-being. Children who witness a lot of destructive conflict in the home can develop frequent illnesses. They can experience sleep disturbances, headaches or stomach aches. And you might notice that they're playing less, which is kind of between the physical and the emotional, but they're just listless, that kind of listless physical well-being. And they're having continual spikes of cortisol, which can affect their immune system. Sometimes it can affect the immune system later in life when we experience a lot of conflict when we're young. So that's something to watch, to be aware of. Intellectually, children who are dealing with a lot of fighting at home can become inattentive, and their ability to focus is really decreased. And so that can lead to learning difficulties in school and in life in general. And socially, relationships with peers and future partners, like I just said, can be really just fraught with difficulty. We don't know how to be in relationship that is healthy
Mm-hmm.
when we're observing relationships that are unhealthy frequently, right? Another interesting thing to notice is that if peace is the only acceptable way, some families decide that they don't want to have conflict in front of their kids or ever. And so then peace is the number one goal in that family dynamic. And this might occur from parents who grew up with a lot of conflict, and they're determined that they're not going to have any conflict in front of their children.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if that type of peace is the only acceptable way to be in this family, that can cause a child to hide away their natural volatility. Like toddlers are volatile. They don't have that emotional regulation that we speak about so often. They're blowing up all over the place because they're still learning. That frontal cortex is still developing, that they can be reasonable and rational and think through things, right? So that natural volatility could get squashed. And when we try to squash our actual real feelings, that can come out in different kinds of destructive behavior.
Mm.
And it might be, going back to the prior list, the anger and the hostility might be the destructive behavior, or the anxiety and the worry and the low self-esteem. Like those are both very destructive behavior patterns, right? When it's under the surface, it can cause children to be even more anxious when fighting is kept down and under the surface. So we want to model for our children because they are learning every minute of every day. We, the parents, want to model that conflict, in fact, does exist and it's normal. And big point here, reaching resolution peacefully is possible. That's what we want to model. Okay. How do we get there?
Please tell me.
I am not a a conflict resolution trained person, but with my years of coaching parents and parenting education, of course, this topic does come up. So, and I'm a researcher, so I'll bring you to the table what I have discovered and what I've learned in my own life too, right? All right. Most in the scientific world, most people who study this aspect of parenting and child development will say that there can be some benefit to children witnessing occasional conflict if it is constructive types of conflict. So this means that parents need to manage to keep themselves regulated. You don't want to resort to yelling and shouting. And it's going to happen sometimes, like Serena, like you said, it is going to happen sometimes. And then you're going to go back to, oh my goodness, I'm so sorry that we just blew up at each other in front of you, because that must have been scary.
Mhm.
So as soon as you can regulate yourself, you reassure that little child that's there with those big eyes looking scared, because they are scared. Their world is falling apart right now. You are their safety. You are their security. If you are yelling and volatile at each other, that's terrifying. So you need to get right down as soon as you can calm yourself. You go down to your child's level and you say, I apologize. Daddy and I need to have a discussion, and we need to be grown-ups and do it quietly and positively. And we're still learning how to do that. And so I apologize for yelling because I know that's scary, right? It's very important that you learn techniques to actually work through whatever conflict it is, and that you use negotiation and compromise, and that you model those. Those are powerful, powerful tools to have in our lives. The tool of being able to negotiate, the tool of compromise. They're very powerful and very effective.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't have time to go into how to do all of those. And there are professionals who do, and they're all over the internet, and they're in your town. So, and the big one that I keep doubly pointing to is it's really important in constructive conflict. What it looks like is that you come to a resolution, and you come to a resolution. If you started the argument in front of the children, you stay calm, you speak respectfully, even if you disagree, you come to a resolution. And what coming to a resolution does is it restores safety. It restores that sense of security. Okay, my parents had a disagreement. They shared a few strong statements towards, with each other. One believes one thing, the other believes something else, and they're going to find their way through. And now they're going to come to a place through negotiating and compromising where they can agree. So they're going to come to some kind of resolution.
And for me, I think it teaches our kids how to be open-minded and not so just one-sided, which causes a lot of conflict in other relationships too. Just being
Yes.
able to have a conversation with somebody else that doesn't have the same viewpoint as you.
Yes. And one of the things that I heard in my research too, which I love, is that sometimes when we fight, we're fighting to win.
Yes.
We want to win this one.
Mhm.
I want you to keep in mind that when parents fight to win, if one person wins, nobody wins. You don't win, he doesn't win, your children don't win. It's a lose-lose. So don't fight to win.
Yes, that's the ego taking over and just trying to
Yeah.
take control, and
Mm-hmm.
letting your ego go is such a freeing thing when you could just let it go and know that you don't have to win. It's okay.
Yes. One of my favorite quotes is, do you want to be right or do you want to be happy?
Yes. That just popped up somewhere recently. But
Do
yeah, it's
you
so
want to be
true.
right or do you want to be happy, people? Like, honest to goodness. And sometimes you can't have both. And sometimes you're going to stick your heels in the dirt and you're going to want to be right. But how much unhappiness is that causing, right?
So true.
It's really important in constructive conflicts that we avoid blaming, shaming, and showing disapproval to our partner that we're fighting with. And that is avoiding blaming, parent blaming, or child blaming. Please don't blame your child in front of your child. Ever, 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 for anything. If you need to have a conversation about something your child is doing that isn't working for you, you make sure you do that out of earshot. And you keep it
Yes.
constructive and you keep it respectful, but never blame your child. And don't blame the other parent. Children are now going to feel torn between, uh-oh, do I pick one or the other? Or, like, that is a horrible position to put our little ones into. So learning how to use constructive criticism, even if you disagree, stay respectful of one another. So as a little example, we talk about if your child gets really upset because another child took their toy and they didn't want them to take their toy, then you move in gently as the adult and you say, oh, you really didn't like it when she took your toy. That made you really mad. That really upset you. Oh, you're just so angry. And then you can also say to your child, you could say to your friend, I didn't like it when you did that. I wanted to play with the toy. I said no. Please don't take it next time when you ask me and I say no. So you're teaching I statements. I didn't like it when. I don't like that. Maybe you, as mama, are exhausted. Probably. It's the it's the end of a long day. Your toddler's been bouncing off the walls. It's been pouring rain outside. There's conflict every moment of the day so far. Your husband's come home from his busy day. He's exhausted. You've just had dinner. And then he goes and sits down in the other room, and you're expected to do the dishes. I'm sorry. I don't like that. That's not working for me. I really could use your support right now. I'm exhausted. I know you're tired and I need your support. We still have family chores to do.
Yeah, that's an important one because as wives, as moms, as stay-at-home moms, we feel like we have to take on a lot of the chores and we're ashamed to ask for help. We build resentment and maybe we explode when we're doing the dishes and they're in the other room sitting, scrolling through their phone, and we still have to put them in the bath, do bedtime routines, and that builds a lot of resentment. And then not on purpose, but we speak to them in a way that's not right because
Yeah.
that resentment is building. So like the way we try to acknowledge feelings for our kids, we need to acknowledge feelings for ourselves.
Yes. And that example, like now you've still got all this to do. You've got these feelings bent up inside and they're going to come out inappropriately. Just like when that child grabbed that toy from your child and your child reached out and hit the other child because they aren't self-regulated enough to be able to say, don't do that. I don't like that. Right. So when we're teaching our children, it's okay to feel upset about this and you need to use your words. So you mamas, you need to use your words and get the support that you need. Your job, even when we are stay-at-home mamas, parenting our children is a huge, huge job. It's exhausting. It's constant. If your babies are waking up in the night still, you don't get your full night's sleep. Like it is a full-time job, much fuller than 8 hours a day.
Yeah, studies show that a stay-at-home mom, being a mom, is the 98-hour work week.
There you go.
It's not easy.
There you go. So daddy, when you get home
from your 40 hours,
come on in and be daddy.
Yeah.
And be effective daddy. Is that right there? I'm betting that might calm down some of the conflict in the family.
Oh, yeah.
Right. All right. So just quickly, I know this is a longer session, you guys, but it's such a deep topic and it's such a hot topic. And we're really pleased to dive into it, honored to be asked. And let's just look at a few other little details about how can we be constructive in our conflicts. There's been a bit now, but let's just look at a couple more. One of the suggestions, and I'm just going to touch on these and you're going to have to go do your research. One of the suggestions is to figure out how you're going to argue. This was from a psychological page that I was reading, how you're going to argue and make that decision before the next argument comes up. Get some ground rules in place for arguing. If you start yelling, or if I start yelling, we get to take a breather until we can calm ourselves down again. Put some ground rules in place. Okay.
Can I mention one that's helped me?
Yes.
Is if we're arguing, don't go back in the past and bring up other things. We're talking
Stay on topic.
Yes, what's happening right now. We're not, if I'm telling you something that I feel about you, something about you, you can't come back and bring it to me. We're speaking about the situation at hand.
Right.
That's
a really good parameter for arguments. Setting a time to argue, scheduling arguments, which sounds bizarre, but it is something that some couples practice. And it's like, okay, we don't have to be volatile in the moment that something happens. In fact, what we know about the brain is that we're not going to be able to stay calm if we're upset about something. So you know what? We need to talk about this. How about, at 7:00 or at 9:00 or at 10:00 tomorrow morning or whatever it is. And you need to be able to hold it.
What I like about that is you can take that time to sizzle down a little.
Exactly. One of the suggestions too is that we don't sit across from each other. There's a whole psychological thing about you sit over there, I sit over here, and we look at each other and we get eye contact. It's very on a mammalian and animal kind of response. That's I'm going to defend myself and you're going to attack and I'm going to attack and we're going to defend and attack, right? So you want to sit either beside each other on the couch. Better yet, you want to go for a walk.
Wow. I like that one.
And in all of this, you want to focus on regulating you. You cannot control how the other person, manages themselves. No matter how much you demand or plead or beg or whine or cry, it's not going to change how that person chooses to be. You get to regulate yourself. If you're losing it, if you hear your voice getting louder, if you're starting to scream or yell or stomp your feet or whatever it is, you need to find a way to calm. And we've talked about those in relation to how we're dealing with our children. So now we want to talk about, maybe you're doing the dishes. Let's use that as the example. So there you are, you're doing the dishes, and there's this conflict brewing and popping up. I want you to focus on the sensation of your hands in the warm water. Bring yourself into the moment. That's mindfulness. I want you to hear the water in the sink. I want you to feel the scrubber on the plate. I want you to just really tune into your body. Take those deep breaths. Remember, I'm not going to fight in front of my child unless we can be constructive and come to a resolution respectfully. Okay. And if you can, get yourself outside. Get yourself outside. Go for a walk. Focus on nature. Nature is incredibly healing. Oh my gosh, we'll do a whole episode on the healing power of nature. Honest to goodness, I can't remember them off the top of my head, but there are phenomenal changes that happen to our brains and our physical beings within 5 minutes of being beside a tree. If you're
Wow.
in an urban area, just go walk and stand beside a tree. It's incredible. So we'll do an episode on that. So when I say go for a walk, it's not just to blow off steam, but that helps. Getting that exercise does help. And for those of you, just to finish off, for those of you who are experiencing destructive conflict, you're experiencing it often, and the intensity is really high, I really, really strongly encourage you to get some professional help. But just listen back to that list of destructive things that can be going on for our children emotionally, socially, intellectually, and physically for their lives. Their whole lifetimes can be affected by constant high-level conflict between their parents. Okay, so please get some help. Look up resources online, phone your local community association, ask your doctor, however it is. I want you to get some help because we want you to be the best, beautiful team raising your gorgeous, beautiful, empowered, nurtured
Confident. Yes.
children. Yes.
All the things.
All the things. Anything else, Serena, for you?
Just don't feel ashamed for asking for
Yes.
help. It's like taboo to discuss having problems in your marriage and your relationships. And I don't understand why. And that's why we have that problem. And we want to break that generational cycle.
Yes.
And we want to build their emotional intelligence and intellect. So it's really important. This is such an important topic, and I'm so grateful that our listener brought it up to us and that we can have this conversation.
Yeah.
So thank you. Thanks for all that help.
So good. And it's our job. I was saying this earlier to Serena. I just want to say it again while we're recording. It's our job as parents, although we didn't know it was part of our job description when we were pregnant and becoming parents, choosing to become a parent, we didn't realize that it's actually part of our job description to heal ourselves, to heal the conflicts within us that are exploding into our adult world. We need to get the help that we need so that we can, as Serena said, not pass it on to that next generation. And there's a beautiful storybook called A Kiss and a Touch and a Hold. And I can't remember the author right this moment, but it's about how each generation yells a little bit less. It's a beautiful little picture book for very young children. And you can let your children know that you're working on this, you're trying, you're learning, and apologize to them when you blow it, and be empowered in your own well-being, and make sure you and your children are safe. We love you.
Love you.
Okay, so I wanted to write down my gems, but I basically wrote down the whole episode because it was just filled with so much good stuff that I've never heard before, because it is so taboo to speak about arguing. And this is such an important conversation. And I'm so happy we did it and that we can share it with you. So I'll share just these 4 gems that I narrowed it down to. Number 1 being that a nurturing parent protects their kids' feelings of safety and security. So all the destructive forms of conflict that we discussed depletes their sense of safety and security, and this can stay with them forever. So when you know better, you do better. And after hearing this, I hope that you've learned that those destructive forms, and I know it's hard, it's going to take work and we're going to mess up, and that's okay. But those destructive forms of conflict really sit with your kids, and I'm sure if we think back to our past, you can find those examples in your upbringing as well. So just think about how that affected you. Number 2 is witnessing constructive conflicts and seeing negotiation and compromise and allowing our kids to witness that. We're modeling powerful tools that they're going to need to have successful relationships in the future, whether it's with friends, parents, and partners. So we do need to model that there is a form of constructive conflict. And when we do reach that resolution in front of our kids, it restores that safety. Number 3 is that we didn't realize it was our job to heal ourselves when we became parents. And we have to remember to keep ourselves regulated. And we can do that by practicing mindfulness. I love the example that Emma shared with the dishes and just paying attention to the water running and the temperature of the water and the dish that's in your hand and the sponge, and really practicing that mindfulness to just relax a little and sizzle down, or going for a walk and just standing next to a tree and the power of nature and how healing it is. And if nobody's looking, maybe you want to hug that tree. But yeah, we didn't realize that it was going to be a lot of healing for ourselves when we became parents. And sometimes we might just have to go get professional help, and that's okay. I know anybody that I've heard that has gone and got professional help has not regretted it. They regret that they didn't go sooner. So if it is in your financial means to go get professional help, I really suggest you do that. Lastly is how we always talk about acknowledging feelings for our kids. And when it comes to arguing with our partners, we forget to acknowledge our own feelings, and that's why we have these outbursts. As a stay-at-home mom, that's probably my main thing, is just how we get this weight on our shoulders because we're stay-at-home moms. So it feels like everything has to fall on us, and it's extremely overwhelming. And what do? We explode on our partners, and it's not fair to them. It's not fair to us. So we need to learn communication. Most of what we speak about in our episodes when it comes to parenting really applies to ourselves and our relationships with anybody else. And it's funny because after we have most discussions, I'm like, this is so applicable to my relationship with my husband. And after this journey of learning gentle, connected, positive parenting, I have noticed a change in my relationship with my husband, and I have learned healthy forms of communicating with him through learning how to speak to our kids and maintain that respect. So that's something to think about just when you're listening to any of our episodes, is this can apply to any relationship as well. So acknowledge your own feelings acknowledge your partner's feelings and acknowledge your kids' feelings if you do explode in front of them, and know that you can say, I'm sorry, and that you are learning as well. So I really hope that you got some good info out of this episode. We hope that you please put it in practice and that you are just more aware. And if you know better, you do better.
Hey, Mama.
Thank you for being here with us.
That.
Okay, how cute was that? Thanks for being here with us. Hit subscribe to get notified.
And hey, did you get anything out of this episode? I know I did. Show some love and send it to your mama friends to bless their day too.
And before you run and change that diaper, take 5 seconds and leave us a review saying how much you love us. You'll be helping other mamas find us. Did you know that? And hopefully find answers to the questions that are keeping them awake at night.
And if you screenshot your review and DM it to us, you will be entered to win a 1-hour coaching call at a discounted price with Amelisa.
I can't wait to chat with you. Come hang out with us in our Facebook group or on Instagram. Just click the links in the show notes. And you can direct message us anytime. We would love to chat with you.
We also have a buy me a coffee option for a fun way that you can support this podcast for just as much as you care to give. Just click the show support link in our show notes. Thank you.
This show.
See you next week.
This is